Hello, aloha, welcome to the November 29th, 2023 Environmental Management Commission meeting. We are starting late, so apologies for that. We'll see, we're going to try and get the meeting done by noon, and we'll see how we go. I will run through the roster. Everybody wave when your name comes up. District 1 is John Burns, and I got called out to go cruising on the ocean in the rain, I guess, again. So he won't be with us. We do have rumor that a new candidate should be appointed. Oh, hey, Dot. For him starting or hopefully go through approval next month. So that'll be good. Jim Beats. Hopefully he doesn't spend all his time on the ocean, so he'll be able to join us for meetings. District 2, Laura Casio. Thank you. District 3, Del Otsuka. Del. District 4, John Olson. Okay. District 5 is Melissa Cardwell. She could not make it for this meeting. District 6 is Lee McIntosh. Yay, Lee. District 7, sorry, I haven't met you, and you need to get one of these obnoxious lights that show on the Zoom so we can see you, Gonzalo Garcia. Welcome to the EMC. And District 8 is Dot Norris. Dot. And I am Georgine Adams, representing District 9, and also chair the commission. So this meeting is called to order. My computer says 10:04. The first item of business is to approve the minutes. I was not at the last meeting. It looks like it was a very good discussion going on. Sorry, I missed it. Did anybody have any comments or corrections on it? Seeing none, can I have a motion to approve the minutes of October 24th?
So moved.
John, the second?
Second, Laura.
I'll approve. I'll approve. Say aye.
Aye.
Any noes? Hearing none, the minutes are statement from the chair. It's hard. My voice is crunked up. Sick like everybody else is, unfortunately. First, I'd like to acknowledge 2 of our members who are leaving us this year officially. One, as I said, is John Burns from the University of Hawaii Hilo, will be leaving, and he's been a good guy and found a substitute, and that is Jim Beats, who's also a marine scientist with the University of Hilo. We'll see how he fares through the council review next month, assuming all goes smoothly. That'll be great to have a representative from District 1. Our other historian makes me cry. I'm sorry I'm not there, but you don't want me hugging you anyway with my cold. John Olson is rolling off this year officially, although I haven't heard, John, if you have a replacement, so you might be able to stick with us at least through March if you wish. John has been a fabulous font of history on why there is an EMC and what we're doing, and has been a very strong representative for his District 4 in Punaville. And I really can't say enough how much we appreciate the knowledge you bring. And I sincerely hope that we will see you at future meetings, providing public comment. And so thank you, John.
Watch what you wish for.
No, what we need to do is hear from people so that we understand what's going on and what the concerns are and what we can do about it. So I just really want to thank you, John, for all your amazing knowledge and passion.
Well, I have to admit that this is in part my fault. I was one of the people of the dozen or so people who were sitting around the table who decided that we needed to have this body. And this was created through referendum. This is not a creation of the body politic. So we were having, I can't even describe what was going on in Puna at the time. We were being used as the county's trash bin, and unknowingly. So this was our response to that.
Well, I know that we still have a lot to do and a continuing areas of responsibility. Personally, I found this last year, although the government's on this fiscal year, so it's not really the end of their year. It's the middle of the year for them, but for us on the calendar, it's been an interesting year. We basically added 4 new people to the commission. There is a bit of a steep learning curve, and having been on the commission, I guess now 4 years, next year is my last year. It's a continuing learning curve on just what's happening, what the issues are, what's changed. So I sincerely thank all the newcomers and hope you can maintain your enthusiasm and accomplish even more next year. We'll be picking up another member at least. John, do you have you talked to anybody into applying for your position?
Oh, well, I mean, we're on the Sierra Club level, we're discussing it. We have people that have some interest.
Good. I mean, it would be fabulous. I've never experienced a full 9-member EMC, so that would be a delight to have that happen. So I do want to acknowledge also for DEM. I think they've given us good participation. They listen, they have responded, and they have dealt with unending challenges with a tremendous amount of progress, especially in the wastewater arena. I think moving and responding to the concerns that we've had on water resource management from a wastewater standpoint, and have been thrilled with the addition of Kelly Hartman to the group. Chris Laud, I'm still trying to do some interaction with him, but I think he's very knowledgeable staff. And Ramsey has been amazing at how he's juggled all the balls, and very much appreciate him. So overall, yeah, other than lingering COVID issues and trying to hire people and losing people, I think 2023 has been pretty good. But 2024 will be better, right, guys? So enough of me. Item number 4, public statements on any items on the agenda. I have to say for everybody that Rick Anthony, who's going to speak with us about zero waste under item 6.1, has COVID and pneumonia and all the rest of it. So he's not going to join us. I feel for him very much, and hope that we'll be able to schedule him in 2024 in the not too distant future, and wish him well. So if anybody wanted to comment on the zero waste topic that he was going to address, we're going to defer it. If you would still like to present comment, we're obviously open to hearing that, but you won't have the advantage of having heard Rick talk. So Peter, are there any public commenters?
None in the corner, Chair.
Anybody online, on the phone? I don't think I see. Too many people. Okay, not hearing any, I'll move on. If, as we get later on the agenda, you have an item that you'd like to discuss at that time, please let us know, send a chat to Peter Sir, our secretary, and we will make sure to hear from you. Unfinished business. Sorry. My favorite, the pre-treatment code and rules update. I have to say that I did receive drafts from Chris Laud. But I was traveling and being sick, and so I only recently got a chance to go through them all and send him my comments. But there's a lot of work involved and a lot of cross referencing that needs to be done. So I'm impressed with what he's done, and we'll continue moving that along as well as we can. There were a couple of items, maybe is Chris on, or Ramsey, were you going to address?
I'm here.
Oh, you're there. Hi,
I
Chris.
think Ramsey's on too.
Yeah.
Hi.
So if you just want to give us the latest update.
So we are packaging up everything into a pre-treatment program development package that we're going to submit to DOH shortly here. And then they're supposed to review and comment. They weren't very responsive when I was at the City and County of Honolulu, so I don't expect any feedback from them. So as soon as we get that submitted, then we'll start the formal process of getting the revised ordinance to council to vote on. So we're going to be working a lot on that in the coming weeks.
Are there some issues that you would like to hear EMC comment on before you get to that wrap? I was making comments online for you up until last night, so I'm sure you haven't had a chance.
Yeah, I haven't gotten to see your comments yet, but there's some changes we made on who is considered accessible and who we can invoice for sewer, how we're going to handle the sewer system expansions. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in there. There are a lot of changes.
Maybe for others, just to remind you, if you don't recall, the pre-treatment standards, we haven't had any per se. And so we were remiss in complying with EPA requirements. They're basically directed toward industrial, bigger commercial operations that may be putting stuff down the sewer that could knock out our wastewater treatment plant, kill the bugs that are in there, clog up the pipes or whatever. And so there are requirements depending on the kinds of operations you have that require you to pre-treat to take out some of the contamination that may be present in your wastewater. It isn't really directed toward residential. Those are pretty standard. That's what a POTW is, mostly for publicly operated treatment works, owned treatment works. So we don't have a lot of industry on this island. I was curious, Chris, what kind of industries do you think we have to deal with?
Well, okay, yeah, you touched on a lot of things there. So the pre-treatment program does indeed focus on everybody except residential. So it's intended to give us an idea of who is discharging to us, what they're discharging and how much, and then forces us to look at how does this discharge impact the plant? So a huge first step is just figuring out who are the industrial users who are discharging to us. We've completed that. We've identified about 24 that are significant, which means that they have, it's likely that their discharge could impact plant operations. And they are mostly, like the hospital is one. We have a couple of like fish packing plants and Meadow Gold, my favorite. And but no real industrial or chemical users. So very different from what we dealt with on Oahu. A big push is going to be for food service establishments or restaurants. They discharge a lot of fats, oils, and greases. So we'll start this coming year with permitting restaurants. There'll be a nominal fee for that. And then we will work with them to try to improve their best management practices so they reduce the amount of fats, oils, and greases that make it to our collection system. And those things they're problematic. They cause us to expend a lot of effort and time addressing them.
You mentioned accessibility, and I don't know that we necessarily need to talk about it right now, but just a heads up, everybody. Ramsey had talked before about the idea that there's a fairly limited 300 feet. I can't keep all the details in my head. If you're close enough to one of the county sewers, you need to hook up. And right now it's pretty close. And you're looking to extend how far away is acceptable?
Yes, that's right. Right now it's so I believe the current definition is that if there's a lateral to your property, that means you're accessible. We want to change that to say, hey, if there's a sewer line on an adjoining parcel like the street, then you need to connect. We're also looking at what are the service areas for each plant? What can each plant reasonably be expected to connect up to? And this ties in with the cesspool conversion efforts that are going to be coming in the next few years. But now we have an idea of what can each plant handle. So where can we extend the sewer system? So I think in the new revisions, I tried to walk us away from a physical distance and focus it on, hey, what is the service area for each plant? And if you're in that service area, you're going to have to connect at some point.
Okay. The other issue that you mentioned there very briefly is you're talking about basically a new fee for splitting out the users, which is basically how it's being dealt with right now. There are assumptions made on residential users of the county sewers, but also a volume measure for charging people for commercial operations. But you're talking about adding in, call it a service fee for that accessibility to just help with the core maintenance and operation of the sewer system itself. Is that correct?
Correct, yeah. And so the industrial users that we will permit, they will have a permit application fee, and then they'll be required to monitor the discharge periodically, test it, and also quantify how much they're discharging to us. The county already has a high strength and high volume wastewater program. We've not really implemented that. So I tried in this ordinance revision to make that clearer and more actionable, so that when we have a discharger who wants to discharge a large quantity of wastewater and or it's high strength, then we have a way of influencing their behavior, by charging. It's causing us extra effort at the plant, in the collection system, so we need to recoup that loss, but we also need to try to affect their behavior and get them to choose wisely. So if it's expensive to discharge to the wastewater system, then maybe they'll look at alternative ways to reuse that waste.
I guess I got a couple questions here. Am I right in what you said was that the systems need to be contiguous? In other words, you can't skip over a property to get to something?
Well, so right now we have a lot of parcels that have been skipped.
Yeah,
Right? So we need to infill the current collection system to connect properties that should be connected, but just never
right.
were. That area over by Prince Kuhia Plaza in Hilo, it's all commercial and hardly any of them are connected. So that's like a prime area to be connected. When and I see a hand up there next to you, and I'll get to you just in a second, but what I'm trying to say is when you develop a parcel, it's not my goal to say, hey, you can't develop that parcel. My goal is, hey, this ordinance says if you want to have high density development, then you need to connect.
Yeah.
My question is that in San Francisco, a lot of the restaurants were mandated to have grease traps, and there was a recycling program for that. Are we looking into doing something like that?
We are. We're going to have to ease into it, because even though many restaurants have some sort of grease interceptor or grease trap, and there's no coherent system or method to clean those. So yes, this coming year we'll implement a FOG program, a fats, oil, and grease program that will include licensing restaurants or permitting them, so we understand who's generating this waste. We're also going to permit the haulers, so we know who's picking up the waste and how often. And then we'll also permit the disposal facilities so that we can close that loop and understand the entire process, right? Generation, cleaning, transport, and disposal.
Is there any federal money floating around to help?
That's a good question. I have not had a chance to explore.
Okay, well, I mean, I
And yet,
that we, as if I put on the Sierra Club hat again, we have people who could assist, I think.
okay,
So I'll make it
okay,
with us to help up the chain to see if there's something there, because we can ask for things that maybe you can't.
all right. I'll send Georgine. I'll work through Georgine and send her some ideas of what we're looking to implement and where we could use some help with money.
That would be great. I mean, one of the things I think will be, since we haven't been doing anything, will be a major education program that people even,
Yes.
you want us to do what? And how do we do it? And I think that's going to be a major effort.
That's going to be
Communicating with
huge.
people who are subject to these new rules and trying to figure out how you organize them and lay them out. That was maybe more of my focus in comments to you than you appreciated, but just making them intelligible enough that somebody who never thought about it before could look at it and go, what do I have to do? Am I in? Am I out?
Yes.
So again, that whole area of public information, how you communicate with the people who are subject to the requirements, as well as the community that may or may not be affected. Are there any other comments for Chris about the pretreatment standards? Ramsey, you have a comment.
Yeah, I just want to add to that, just to make sure there's two things going on, but it's going to be within the same code, which is one, the pre-treatment requirement countywide, and how we're going to tackle it and how we're going to be able to enforce it and inspect it as well. Certain facilities that could be under such pre-treatment. The second issue, which is the code modification, the one that we've been working on and everybody's been asking where we at on the status of that code changes that could pretty much set this, the requirement of how our department or the wastewater division could proceed forward with subdivisions, connections, clean out inspections, and the proper way of installing laterals versus mains versus the number of services, connected services, and how to calculate the service fees. Should be based on fixed rate and adjusted based on water usage and what have you. I know we talked about all of this this year, and I know, Georgianne, we were supposed to share with you the code so you could take the lead on changing that aspect of things. So I don't know where Chris, if he had shared it with you, but
Yeah, I got copies of the code, and I put in a fair amount of comments. One of which was dealing with the appeal that we had to focus on a year or so ago, and the issues that needed to be cleaned up. And again, how do you communicate that? How do you be fair to people in actually charging for the services that they have, as well as countywide, the fact that we need to have functional public sewers, and how do we support that happening? So when it comes out for public review, again, I think there are going to be a lot of confused people, and there'll be a lot of communication necessary to just explain what we're trying to do and not do. The other area that I think it needs some consideration, and maybe we'll talk about that in the next one for general plan purposes, is that balance between public-private. And does the county want to own it all? Every sewer pipe everywhere? I don't know that you can manage that. And what would that mean if the county took it over? Or how can we encourage private treatment works and the appropriate type of wastewater treatment wherever the discharger may be, or whoever they are. Laura, did I see you twitch? Did you have a comment? Nope. Okay.
Well, those are interesting concepts, and here, for better or worse, DOH runs everything that the county does not connect to, right? So it's a little complicated. But yeah, we're open to whatever works, whatever makes the big picture materialize. And again, I want to reiterate, my view for this program is not to penalize people. It's not to collect fines. It's not to bring enforcement. It's to gain compliance. And the first step in that is clearly stating what the requirements are and gaining understanding, or helping everyone understand what the requirements are. So yeah, there's going to be a huge public education component in this.
Well, and weigh in again, if I might, I mean, with the sewer system now looking like it's actually going to happen for beautiful downtown Pahoa, we're definitely, the businesses there, they tend to be very environment friendly, and but they're going to need economic help. I have no doubt. They're all small, even under the small business heading. So, yeah, we have skin in the game on this one.
And I was fortunate to be able to take my staff to a pre-treatment conference in Arizona. And one of the topics of conversation was that, so one of the presenters had a very different view of the world than I do. And he was going on about how the kitchen staff have no idea where the grease trap is. And that stuck in my mind because I, in my younger days, worked in a lot of restaurants and I had no idea where the grease trap was. And, you know, they're talking about, well, how do you clean the exhaust fan filters? I'm like, oh, that's easy. Just pull them out and you put them in the dishwasher and the hot water dissolves all that grease and it goes away. But yeah, these are things that we're going to need to work with the local communities, not only for the businesses that are currently sewered, but like, you know, downtown Powhatan, we're going to have a pretty good outreach and education program on this is what happens when you do certain things. So here's how we're going to manage it.
Yep. Looking
Any
forward-
other comments, questions? Dot?
Yeah, you're going to review the plan and then are you going to show us in a later meeting the plan of your comments? Or are we just sort of waiting for the public? Georgianne?
I'm a little unclear on that, but yeah, I'm open to, I think the way it should work is we present, we work closely with you to develop the package that goes to council, that goes out for public comment.
The next step, as I understand it, is you're gonna present a package to DOH, the state.
Yeah. Now,
And
now
then
keep
they're
in mind,
gonna
that's a
comment back.
draft.
Maybe.
Maybe. I wouldn't count on it.
Well,
So-
unfortunately, I mean, that would be the loop. Get some comment back from DOH and then
Yes.
show us what you think you can move forward with at that point. And then we can comment on what's going to make sense, what we think should be recommended to council, blah, blah, blah. Once that semi-finished draft package is ready to roll. So
Yes.
I think it's important to get DOH input, even if they choose not to, just so we don't do a lot of work on something that they put the kibosh on.
Well, as Ramsey brought up, I mean, it's like a multi-pronged approach. The main thing is the pre-treatment. I doubt we're going to get any comment on that because I've just taken the model pre-treatment ordinance, massaged it a little bit to make it fit into our county code. And then I'm moving a bunch of the jargon out of the code and into the administrative rules so that the county code is shorter. And all that stuff doesn't really need to be in there. So I don't think DOH will make any comment on that.
Okay.
And then the
If-
other
if
changes,
you're
I think, are between
comfortable-
us.
Yeah, if you're comfortable with that, I mean, at any time, you can present us with, here's the draft, here are the hot buttons that we see, and then we can respond. But giving it to the EMC is giving it to the public.
Yeah,
And so just be aware of that it'll be a published draft then, as we all get to review it. And at the point you're ready to do that, I definitely would encourage that we be in that loop to help refine and prepare for council response and approval.
okay. I'll touch base with you and we'll strategize and come up with the way, because there are a lot of other changes that we're trying to make in the code. The
Correct.
pre-treatment stuff's non-negotiable, but the rest of the things we need to be on the same page on.
Yeah, and like I said, some of that is going to be carryover from the conversations we had when we had a hearing about an appeal rather on who was in and who was out on residential sewer discharge.
Yeah, and I know we have concerns on units, and man, that's really complicated.
Mhm.
And I don't have a fully developed idea on how to make that transparent. Because in this day and age of Airbnb rentals, people rent all kind of things as
Yeah.
units, and I don't know. That is one area where we need a little more work.
Okay.
Yeah,
Maybe I'll quit describing it as a pretreatment code and talk about it as code.
Yeah,
Agenda item.
I mean, you kind of opened this door, but the small lot subdivisions, which at this point are, just out there in the wild, wild west, you've got a hole in the ground because
yeah.
that's what was allowed back when these subdivisions were created. I don't know whether you've ever wandered across a book called Land and Power in Hawaii.
I haven't had a chance
Royalties
to
on
read
that
it
book,
yet.
John.
Yeah, it'll make some interesting reading for you. And that would bring me to all of these small lot subdivisions that we have out in Puna.
Well, one thing I tried to do was not replace DOH, but just point out that DOH has requirements and that we as a county are allowed to restate those in our code. So I restated them and made it a little clearer that the requirement isn't a 10,000 square foot lot for an individual wastewater system. It's 10,000 square feet just for the IWS. So the lot has to be bigger. So I tried to include the Hawaii Administrative Rules 1162 language on individual wastewater systems and just cleaned it up a little bit so that it makes sense and it's coherent, to try to avoid these where someone does a 49-acre, 10,000 square foot lots. There's a ton of those all over the island.
Yeah, well, we have the biggest ones.
Yeah.
Okay, if I can, we'll talk offline, Chris, and
Okay.
schedule, some additional discussion, more less on the pretreatment side perhaps, but more on the other changes you're trying to make in the code. And I'd like to move on to the unfinished item on the general plan, which includes wastewater, as well as solid waste. Those are the two sections that DEM has asked for us to comment on. I have sent individual comments to Ramsey and crew, but are there others who are prepared to raise some issues you'd like to see addressed in the general plan? I should first comment, they've extended the deadline for comments. So we've got until March. So it's not quite the panic to look in the comments. You can go in individually and comment directly to the planning department online. And I said, I sent some, and a lot of it was just questions to DEM. But if there's some issues that we think should be discussed here at EMC, what do you have, guys? Anybody?
This is Commissioner McIntosh. So I was a little confused about what you just said. So are we not commenting or sending resolutions as a commission? Are we just submitting?
No, excuse me, if EMC needs to send a comment as EMC, I was just saying there isn't a panic on time deadline now, since they've extended it to March 1st. So if you haven't had a chance to pull things together, if we don't have the opportunity today to talk about specifics, we can bring it back for January's meeting, for example. But I also just want to remind everybody, as individuals, you are welcome to communicate however you wish on the general plan.
Okay.
So the question on the table right now is, do any of you have comments you'd like to see EMC put together as our response to the general plan? I think
I
that
had,
was the agenda item that was carried over
Yeah.
from the last meeting.
I had some suggestions I put together this morning, trying to use Peter's suggested method of cross out and underline.
Yeah,
And then I realized I have no way of giving it to y'all, so I'm not sure how to proceed.
Peter, is that something that you could collate comments and present a package at the next meeting?
That was,
Or,
yes. Or actually, this meeting was, do you have anything to provide that EMC can vote on? Or now we can push it again.
you're breaking up, I'm sorry. Say again?
Chair, if it is EMC's intent to review any proposed statements and collate them and vote on them and approving, then we can send them to planning department. Or we can postpone, it's up to the commission.
And so Lee, of the issues that you came up with, were there any that you'd like to have some discussion today on?
I guess maybe the only thing that needed discussion was that for the landfill, the life of the landfill in paragraph 2, instead of using 2019 numbers, which makes it sound a lot more rosy than what it is now, use current estimations of the life of the landfill. That would require, I guess, the DEM coming up with an estimate. Although I think they've given us several. That's probably the only thing that would need discussion, because I don't know what number or estimate the department would run with. The rest is just a little additions or subtractions. I could submit to Peter and we could all look at it at the next meeting.
Okay, Ramsey, you had comment or reply to that, maybe?
No, I just want to make sure, because you asked the question about if anybody have comments to the general plan conditions and what have you. I know over the last year or more, too, actually, since we started, seemed like most of you has certain vision that you like to see that reflect into your district. So please insert these comments, because it's very important now that you could convey such needs and where do you see your district or your community heading toward, because these are long vision planning is going to take us till 2045. So any comments that you guys could present that could have an impact on what your district vision is and community is, relay these, because this is your opportunity. Discussion from, sewer connection to solid waste, to septic tanks, to whatever you guys foresee that you want to drive in the future planning. When it comes to our department, it's vital that you guys convey the message that reflects what you trying to convey from your community, because we're gonna see growth, and the growth will be driven based on subdivisions and the need for affordable housing, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, you got sewer service areas versus areas, communities that don't have any sewer facilities, and how would you guys perceive that growth to take place? So you have existing communities versus in new communities. Do you want to follow the same status quo for the new communities that comes in, or do you want to see it done differently? And I think that's the intent and purpose. I'll just throw in a good example you guys may want to think about, since Commissioner McIntosh brought up that solid waste, landfills, and capacity and what have you. See, the capacity is changeable based on the growth. So, technically you show 2029, in 2 years, 5 years down the road, that could be shortened because if it just, you got more people now and the growth will take away from that capacity. So having a number of, and keep dealing with a number that potentially have to change is probably would be unrealistic, because that document is to 2045. So we need to make sure the language is written to allow flexibility for the department rather than just being stated in such document. But a good example that could be suggested, in new subdivision, maybe they need to start having their own collection area, like similar to what apartment complexes have, where they have these, 3 cubic yard bins secured in a small fenced area where people just could take it there and they could hire a franchise hauler or a garbage hauler to haul it to the landfill. That way we don't have to start building more transfer stations or enlarging the transfer stations that we have. So if the newcomers, maybe we need to start thinking about changing the habits of how we could manage solid waste. I'm just throwing that as an example, because otherwise that could have a major impact on our current transfer station, because they've been designed a long time ago, and they were not designed to take growth. And if we need to consider that, we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars trying to change 21 transfer station designs to accommodate all the needs. So stuff like that, I think you need to just think about it. I kind of try to plant the seed of, what type of comments that maybe you guys could fish for. John, I know, John, you've been bringing a lot of questions pertaining to wastewater, solid waste. So it's time for you to jog him down and make him in writing so we could deliver to the 2045, and also could benefit our code changes. It's opportunity, grasp it. Thank you.
Well, I
I
mean,
appreciate it.
this-
I believe Dell had a question, comment.
Thank you.
oh,
This is,
sorry.
1 minute, sir. Thanks. Well, this is regarding the general plan under 4.3 solid waste. And along with what Lee had mentioned on the lifespan of this existing landfill, from what I understand, it takes at least 10 years to prepare a site for landfill. So if we're only looking at 20 to 25 years, I asked before about talking to different agencies like the Hawaiian Homes, Department of Hawaiian Homes, Department of Land and Natural Resources, the county, the state, they have land, to look for it now before it gets too late, because again, we don't know how long it's gonna last. And then there's also, because we're still trucking the trash over, and I thought maybe another good alternative would be incineration. Nobody wants to hear about it, but Pohakaloa has an incinerator, a smaller one. So
maybe if the county can talk to them about diverting some of the trash to go there. I mean, I don't know, that's just a suggestion. So that, and then on the first paragraph on shifting the focus from waste management to resource management. So the recovery parts are what we've been talking about. I think at the current landfill, there's an area that they have all these homeless buildings, a lot of little houses for the homeless people just parked there near the old landfill. So maybe somewhere around there, they can look at having a recovery park. You know, it's big enough. And then you could also use one of those homeless houses for like Keao transfer station. They have no protection from the rain. So, you know, I got to visit some of those transfer stations. So I'm just thinking we can utilize some of the buildings for areas that the county has for employees who have no shelter. And I say that because they're there 7 days a week and all the inclement weather. And the only thing I saw was just one wall, 2 open sides, and enough to fit 2 chairs. And that's what they had. So I'm just wondering if we could just use that area as a recovery park and take a building and put it there. Just a suggestion. And then with the scrap metal on the same 4.3, we have a few contractors that do scrap metal, right? Atlas does, or they got in scrap metal. We have that contract with them still? Oh,
Yeah.
anyway.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, so then I was just looking at that. Well, too, you know, like, I think it was brought up in July about rather than penalizing contractors because we want them to divert the trash, you know, that we should be talking to the different contractors to see how we can help them do what they need to do to help us. So I'm still on that, and I'm just asking about this. And then also on the back of it, under the objectives, there's a few areas about appropriately designing cost-effective waste stations. I noticed too, a lot of them are not open as often as they should. And with Keao, they're open from 6 in the morning to 6 at night. You don't have people there until 7:15, and they leave by 5:15. So if we're gonna have a window of operation for 12 hours, I think we should have someone there at the front end and at the back end, whether you want to lapse employees, because I understand there's 2 over there, so that at least there's someone there, because then the trash becomes a problem when they get in. So that's another thing. And then developing the green waste recycling. I know with the county, the mulch is a concern. I went to visit the different organic facilities, and you know, I'm amazed. But it is very important. And for all the factors that was initiated in the contract to begin with. But not only that, with the fires in Maui, we look at ways to utilize the mulch. So I know Maui's looking at something in Kula about using the mulch to help with diverting some of the, or filling to divert some of the potential hazards, fire hazards. So I'm just saying, you know, the mulch is important. From what I understand, we're not bringing back the mulch to Hilo. So that would be a concern for me. And I was there, you know, if anybody's been to the first Saturday of the month for the public, you know, you'd be amazed. I drove down 2 miles of cars and I had to turn back so that I was at the gate when they opened at 7. And in 2 hours, they got rid of all of that. So, and you know, and they had to bring people in to help work it because they knew what to expect. And a lot of people came from the Puna area and up towards Volcano. But also with the Waikolo one that has the mulch, it would help the people in Quai High to be able to get to that mulch. So, you know, because they're all rocks over there. So that would help them. So this contract with Hawaiian Earth Recycling, I think is very important for all the reasons it's supposed to be there. So I'm just raising that. And then at the transfer stations, the signage, because we're trying to divert the tires and scrap metal from those places. And they have a place to say that not your tires here. You can take it elsewhere, but they don't tell you where you can take it. So if people come in with their tires, they don't know where to take it, but they know they cannot drop it. They're going to leave it on the side of the road and illegally dump it. So maybe better signage to address and educate everybody that goes through. Because when I was there was so many people asking, where should I take this? Where should I take that? And this was at Pahoa, and it's a nice facility, but the signage was not, it wasn't as informative as it should have been. And then they only pick up green waste 3 times a week. So that, and then, yeah, I guess that's it for this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Del. Some of those are shorter term. I'm not so sure the appropriate for the general plan per se, but I guess leave it to DEM how specific you want to get. I too had the general comment, leading this whole section with the idea that what we want to do is resource management as much as we can, as not waste, but as resources, and to focus on waste prevention rather than what are we going to do with this stuff we got to bury. It was a little unclear as I was reading the general plan, and I think they were still referring back to the 2009 ISWMP. Are you looking at more transfer stations? I don't think we want more. I think what we want is, as you were saying, Ramsey, allowing people to come up with places to divert materials, call it a resource park, call it a resource collection area, enabling people to recycle and reuse their junk as conveniently as possible, and not require the county to hire a whole bunch of people and buy trucks to meander it all around the state. So it was kind of looking at it from a higher level of our goal needs to be everybody, not just residential, but everybody on the island looking for, and maybe if you're commercial, you get a requirement to consider waste prevention and diversion. We've got coming up on the agenda my recyclables landfill ban, but it's kind of extending that purpose. I also understand we've got a proposal to look at the film industry. Well, they're one of many on the island that we could look for opportunities. Certainly, if we're going to hit zero waste by 2045, that's pretty cool. That we've got processes in place to educate and support people who are trying to get to zero waste. And a lot of that is education, as Del was saying, just simple things like signage would help a lot. But those are kind of my general thoughts on looking at the plan. Like I said, I sent a set to Ramsey, and I will write something up for Peter to put it as a collation, if you will, for our next meeting. Del, you had a comment?
Yeah, so I just went to Korea and Japan, and there's no trash bins on the sidewalks. So the responsibility starts at home. But that's the way the culture is. So, and they start really young. I mean, everywhere we went, kids were learning about the history and to be responsible citizens, and it starts at home. So the country, I understand, provide their citizens with different recyclable things so that they will come and pick it up. So then there is no waste in the city, no flies. So, it was amazing, but it starts at every home, and the country actually provides their citizens with what they need to divert the trash or recycle whatever they need to recycle. So that's something we can talk about. I mean, something to think about. I know you talked about curbside delivery,
Pickup.
or yeah, but it's, the island's too big, so it would, you'd have to figure out where would it best be suited, new developments. But I'm just saying, if they can do it, we can do it, you know? So with all the planning that we're doing, it's just, we need to do it. We need to do something about all these plans. Yeah. It was amazing. It was beautiful and it was clean and it was amazing.
Thank you, Dale.
You're welcome.
Any other comments about the solid waste part? If not, what about wastewater?
I actually did my homework. Well, in mostly every paragraph. But you know, I brought this up before, and it's like all the things that is saying that we ought to do. Zero waste, waste to energy, all of that. I would like to bring someone in to give a presentation on what they can do. They're not lobbyists, you know, but everything that we're hearing about what we should do, zero cost to the county. I mean, the county doesn't have to pay anything for this. You know, and I'll tell Peter later if it's okay. I would like to have them do a presentation. If you want to know who.
Tell, why don't you give, Peter and I, who it is you're thinking about. Obviously, we were hoping to hear from Rick Anthony on his experiences in setting up zero waste infrastructure and activities, which aren't necessarily going to be money out of the county pocket, but it is going to require some coordinated action. It's not just kindergartners learning they don't generate waste. Little more complicated than
But still,
so let us know. Again, wastewater. I have to say on that section, I was a little uncertain whether there was enough talking about, we've got to move to a place where we can put together public-private coordination of how to get things treated. It can't again all be on the county. And not that I know the answer to that. And a lot of the answers, I think, as well back on the solid waste one, have to be done by the state, authorizing the county to be able to do some things. So I think we need to be clear about that in the general plan, that the county can only do so much. But more generally, I was looking at the concept of place-based, flexible. Those words were kind of missing in this. It kind of read to me, and I have to agree, I admit, I was in Prague, I was playing with a new baby. I wasn't paying a lot of attention when I was writing this, but the idea of you need flexibility, you need to put the right systems in place in the right place. We'll hear a little bit more, I think, when we get to the wastewater plans and meetings that are going on in Puna and Pahala. It isn't a single answer, and the DEM needs some flexibility to be able to offer what's going to work best, be most feasible, considering the community and the geography and the economy. And so some kind of language like that, I think, needs to be built in to this general plan. Del.
speaking of the sewer and thing, you know, in Keaukaha, I realized too, that you might want to consider when you're looking at planning it, that there needs to be currently 8 feet between the water line and the sewer line. So in Keaukaha, the street is only 12 feet wide. So they had to widen both sides of it to accommodate that. So even so, looking, maybe because this was older, so if we're going to try and convert a lot of um, homes to do this, got to consider where the water lines are before the sewers can go in. So that's something to consider when we're drawing up the plans and stuff. Some of these areas are very narrow. So for them to go in and fix it would be very costly. Because they're still waiting, I think, on an MOA to push it through so that Hawaiian Homes can go ahead and pave over what they've already done. And it's been like months. So that's something to consider when we're going to do something to make sure that everything underneath the ground that we need to put in is where it should be. And if it isn't, then maybe we ought to fix it before we can do anything. So yeah, I think they're just waiting on the MOA from the county, the Department of the DEM. I'm not certain, but that's what I heard. So just in line of the wastewater stuff, so make sure that we don't overlook that. Because I don't think we can be too flexible with that. But that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dell.
You're welcome.
And feel free to jump in, Ramsey or Chris, if you've got.
Don has the comments.
Hi, yeah, I was reading over the wastewater plan, and I noticed injection wells were allowed in exempted areas, but there was no real map or idea where these exempted areas are in the general plan. I can imagine it will be into the more detailed plan, but one of my concerns is injection wells in areas near the ocean, and the possibility of nitrogen pollution in those areas. And I know it discusses in detail the water supply system, but also the environmental system should be addressed there. The discharges from injection wells will be regulated by EPA, and we need to know that it's not impacting the nearshore areas.
Excuse me, I don't know if we have general counsel or if Ramsey could comment. The underground injection wells are regulated by DOH, correct, and not DEM?
That is correct.
So we're not to discuss.
So I would just say, that's not DEM's job. It's certainly something you can comment on in the general plan. But
Okay.
as EMC, this crazy county and state, the way they've organized environmental issues, just miss each other.
Okay,
At this time, my recommendation is have Peter compile all the comments. And once we have them, maybe we'll give the opportunity for the follow-up meeting to kind of go over the comments and tell you what's within the county and not what would we recommend to include or exclude. But at this time, I think it's good just if we get all these comments that you all have in one location, so we could review it and be able to kind of comment on it and have discussion about what you guys all suggesting. Because some of them, like I said, it seemed like some of them suggestion for existing operation. And as you all know, we have a consultant that is working on analyzing the current system and recommend possibly policies and procedure changes to the current operation. And you're all aware of it. Our E2 consultant is working on it. So as far as how we're gonna, manage the future solid waste landfill transfer stations and diversion, that's all going to be included in that study. But the comments that we trying to get for the general plan is to address the future, I would imagine the 2045, because I don't know if we could go back and retrofy existing conditions based on the general plan. The intent for that general plan is to control future development of how we want to shape up the island as a new subdivisions comes in or new commercial, businesses comes in. So yeah, any comments you're given, if you could forward it to Peter and he could put it together, and maybe Georgian next meeting, maybe just allow some time to go through all comments. At least we'll be concentrating on a few sheets that we could follow up and address.
No, I agree, and it's also time to close that item, so we will postpone it again until January, and you all have homework to pull together your comments. Again, keep it focused on development into 2045, and don't repeat the mistakes that we've already made by continuing with same old, same old. Moving on to number 3, item number 3, unfinished business. There was postponed from last time, request to adopt a position regarding support for extended producer responsibility, such as SB 1458 SD1 from 2023. As I read the minutes, you, Laura, and Gonzalo were going to put together a proposal, or did you do anything?
You put in a recommendation.
My understanding that folks who are going to read the bill, for example, and educate themselves a bit more on extended producer responsibility, part of that was going to be dovetailed likely with Rick Anthony's presentation, and so it would be a little bit more comprehensive of a view as well. But of course, we don't have that today. But and then perhaps if there was any discussion, it could come out as of the discussion that we vote to support extended producer responsibility. But I think folks didn't have enough opportunity to learn more about what that might look like, especially in regards to Senate Bill 1458.
So do you want to postpone that again until January, or do you want to discuss it now?
Did folks have time to read it and understand it, or if folks have questions, I can do my best to address any questions as well.
This is for the SB 1458.
Yeah, for supporting infrastructure, extended producer responsibility as one of the many attempts to work on our waste management and zero waste initiatives, and as an EMC, at least support the, if not the specific legislation, then definitely supporting the concept of extended producer responsibility, especially with a focus on resource recovery, reuse, refill, and composting.
I did read it. There are questions, but if everybody wants to talk about it later, that's good too.
Otherwise, I would make a motion that the EMC support it and support extended producer responsibility legislation, especially those that are focused on reuse, refill, resource recovery.
Is there a second for that motion?
Well, for the point of discussion, I'll give it a second.
Okay, so we're in discussion. John, you have discussion to make?
Well, I mean, the thing that I keep throwing out there is, of course, the disposal fee captured at the point of sale. Make the person who buys it responsible for it, and they pay for it. They pay for the disposal at the point of purchase. So when it comes down the pipe, you already have money in hand to deal with it. Because if you wanted to try to go over this line by line by line, for each of the things that are going to require some kind of handling, we're not gonna win that. There's nothing, there's no other point in there that you can reach in and grab a hold of it.
So
Yeah.
you would not be supportive of a general EPR comment from EMC?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm throwing out there what I have been talking about for some length of time. I don't see any way to be successful at this if we do not get it up front. Instead of waiting, trying to collect it at the back end.
Chair, can I respond to that?
Sure.
Again, I'm not necessarily the expert on EPR, but my understanding is that instead of at point of sale, this pushes it to the responsibility of the producer whose business model profits off of the waste that their business model creates. They profit off their product, but their business model creates waste that we then deal with and have to pay for either as individual taxpayers and the county. So the addressing of it in pushing it from the point of sale out to the producer is actually the point of this kind of legislation.
Yeah, I would agree. The philosophy of EPR is push it upstream to the initial stream creation, the producer. But I think your comment, John, we understand your argument for ADF, and it is definitely a state issue, as we've been advised by corporate counsel. Before I blather on about this, are there others who would like to comment? Del?
Yeah, on John's, if I read it correctly, it's like if we're gonna have the responsibility put on the producers and have this come back into the system where the people who are being permitted have to have a special permit and pay a fee to have this done in the beginning, later on having to pay for that cleaning up, going back to the facility and reusing it. And they'd have to buy back the same stuff. So I was confused with that. Because if they're gonna be paying for a permit and a fee to have this, and then later on, make sure that there's an operation to take care of that material and then bring it back in for sale. And then they would have to buy it back. Is that kind of what I read? No?
That's one way it could go.
But
Yeah.
that's what I thought I read.
Yeah, it's one way it could go, yeah. But eventually, because you don't have if you have this cost that the distributor basically is going to have to cover when it comes on island, he's gonna turn around and try to push it back on the producer to change his product so it
Comes right back into the system.
Yeah, it's you're just one step beyond the actual producer before you get the money.
But I was looking at the fees that they were gonna be assessed. And that was my question. You know,
Laura, did you want to comment?
So a couple things is, you know, in terms of these top 20 producers, their global market share, this is such a small amount of money for them. And they actually, many of them have really worked it in already. They're aware of EPR, they know it's coming. They're shifting already in a lot of ways, but this becomes part of their advertising budget for most intensive purposes. Just to address Del's comment about the amount of money, all of that could be changed by the legislature. It could be cut in half, you know, there could be tweaks in it. It's just for us, for our purposes as a commission, is do we support having our county push for it, support of it at the state level? Because ultimately it is like Chair said, it is a state issue. They have to direct this. And then the other piece to Dell's comment was the municipality. So our county would still be responsible for the waste management. Just that the producers would be engaged to pay into a fee that then we could use for needs assessments and setting up infrastructure for reuse refill and for other resource recovery initiatives that cost money or need personnel.
Are there other commenters? Like I say, I've got some opinions. Lee? I saw his hand up before yours, Dot. Get to your left next. Lee.
Oh, you can hear me. I guess my concern is that EPR doesn't really exist, so to speak. You know, everyone's been talking about it. There seems to be, from what I've seen, several different ways it could be implemented. I think they said Massachusetts is going to start a program. I really wouldn't be able to support a concept unless I know how it would be implemented. I mean, this looks like you're just picking the big guys and you're picking on them, and then you have all these. I mean, it's not a level or equitable playing field, and it's the state has a limited sort of EPR, and I know with electronics, where they have to pay up front to enter our economy on the islands state. And I already know that one company, they refuse to sell their products here because they're very small and they can't afford to pay that, because it doesn't matter how much they sell, it's a flat fee for them. And so, and then the state turns around and uses that for, instead of what it's designated for, they use it to fill their budget hole during COVID. And from what I can see from that Senate, at least that Senate version of the bill, that all it would do is the money would be collected, it goes towards a report. You know, it's not going to go towards helping to dispose of the costs that the county's incurring disposing of it. So, I mean, until I see like nuts and bolts, how this is going to work, how, you know, what's going to happen, I wouldn't be able to support EPR, the concept of it.
Dot.
I would support it. I think that producers will need to have an incentive, and rather than putting the incentive on the consumer, consumers are going to take it no matter what. They'll pay the extra money, and there is no real incentive for the producers to change their behavior unless you know, they have to pay the fee and actually be part of their budget to change. So I'm in favor of this. At least it's a start. And that's my comment.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Gonzalo.
Yeah, so I think conceptually, you know, it works. And the cost to the consumer is going to be carried at, you know, at point of sale. And if we kind of go off what John was saying, I'd be concerned that we don't want to double dip the consumer, because where we're going to pay, if we're asking the producers of these products to do the certain amount of work, pay fees, what have you, those are going to get passed on to the consumer. And then if we double dip the consumer at point of sale, we have, you know, we're hitting the consumer twice, because they're going to pay for this one way or the other. And so I conceptually, I'm good with the EPR. I would not endorse doing it at point of sale, if that makes sense.
Okay,
Yeah.
Laura?
Yeah, I just would like to make a point that 16 of the 20 producers that particular bill would engage have already made a commitment in their own business world to invest in reuse infrastructure through the global commitment to a new plastics economy, which is through the United Nations commitment. So we already have there. It's kind of similar to the concept that we were talking about with the film industry, where they're already making strides and gains and they want to be plastic free. They're already switching, but they just kind of, there's this little incentive piece where now they have their marketing budget can go towards helping to set up this infrastructure, for example. But like I said, 16 out of the 20 that would be engaged. So that the way Senate Bill 1458 is written is it does not engage any Hawaii producers. So local businesses, anyone creating product, value-added product here and selling it, because it only engages the top 20 market producers of fast-moving consumer goods. And it was specifically crafted that way because we didn't want to hurt our local businesses or anyone trying to produce, especially in relationship to agriculture or any economic driver here in Hawaii.
Okay, I'm going to jump in because I'm going to call a bathroom break at 11:30. I have problems with the specific bill, 1458. I don't think it accomplishes much of anything. It'll collect a little pile of money that is going to be peanutos for these humongous companies. Isn't going to influence them one way or t'other. I do have support for a broader statement coming from EMC in supporting a plethora of responses to try to look for how do we reduce waste. EPR is one example, not the only one. I have mine and it will come up to the, if you can recycle it, don't throw it away in a landfill. The whole concept of a zero waste mindset, education. I mean, there's a lot of approaches, no single one is going to work. This is not, I found myself surprisingly agreeing with some of the comments that went in last year, or maybe it was still this year, from environmental groups that were saying this really is an EPR. It's a way to get some money to do some studies. And these big guys, yeah, this rounding errors for them, not even rounding errors, lost. It isn't going to change their behavior for Hawaii to require this fairly piddly amount of fees. One more thing, you got a checkbox. But the concept of extended producer responsibility is being explored by several other states. I would like to see them work out the bugs, see what works, what doesn't, and then compare it to what we can accomplish here on this island, given our unique circumstances. But I wouldn't have a problem with a motion that was more generally supportive of the range of approaches that make sense for this island to reduce the production of waste. Laura.
I just wanted to say that the estimate for amount of money collected at $100 a ton is $100 million per year. And even if it got dropped to half at $50 a ton, it would be $50 million per year. So I don't know. I totally.
But you're talking about charging billion-dollar companies this fee.
I just want to just finish that one statement, and I don't mean it to discredit anything you said, because of course I support your statement. I just wanted to clarify that $100 million a year or even $50 million a year, we could do a lot with that in terms of resource recovery and shifting and education.
Are there any other comments? We ready for a vote? So the motion, I don't know, Peter, if you've got it, is it what's written here? Do we specifically cite SB 1458 in that motion, or is it a more general statement, Laura?
Chair, I'm also happy to table it for now, if we're not ready for a discussion, because I think it really does dovetail with a lot of the things that our presenter was going to present and could clarify a lot of the answers to that. as well as perhaps we're just not ready to make that decision.
As a seconder, John, are you okay with deferring this? Until after we hear from Rick?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay, so be it. All right, I'm gonna give you a quick 5-minute break. We were gonna try to hold this meeting till noon. I can go a little bit longer if you guys can, but if you need a break, take 5. Back. Hi, welcome back. Thank you. Moving on, and I realized the comment I'd made about you having done homework, Laura, was about item 4, which was the film industry. Is there specific motion you'd like to make, more discussion that we need to have?
Discussion.
So at this point, I am not complete in my research and due diligence myself, but I would like to say that looking into information coming from Environmental Media Association, they give different seal labels for, you know, indicating that the heightened sustainability practices are behind the scenes and throughout the productions of different productions. And so still looking into things like Flip the Script on Plastic Initiative, which basically highlights a lot of that, and Green Council from SAG-AFTRA and the MP team. So they're working right now to eliminate single-use plastic in the entertainment industry. So this is all kind of pre-informational. I personally still have to do more research and put it together in a comprehensive format for the commissioners. I don't know if Commissioner Garcia has done more work. We did communicate a little bit, but I know myself, I'm still working on pulling that together, and we'll be working on that in the next few months.
Gonzalo, did you?
Yeah, so no, I just did some initial review, and I think there's an opportunity, you know, I know our charter is waste and water and et cetera, but I think managing their whole environmental footprint is probably important. I've been involved in some sites where maybe they were doing a good job on water and waste, but they really weren't being very restrictive on their footprint. And, you know, our whole island is very sensitive. So, you know, from cultural resources, natural resources, et cetera. So I think there's an opportunity to maybe broaden the language a little bit, but I'm not sure how we do it within the charter of EMC. So, you know, I think that's where we can probably have some more discussion.
Okay, well, when you're doing a little bit more homework, the questions I had was, you know, why film? How much are you talking about in terms of impact? I'm always one that likes going up 30,000 feet and saying what I'd like to see is a way to build in requirements for every business operation on this island. Start with the big ones, work your way down to do pollution prevention planning. How are you going to reduce the production of waste? Why the film industry as one to focus on? Haha, this film. Anyway, I wasn't in on the conversation, so I don't know. It's an opportunity, it's somebody, but how many films they make on this island a year? So it was more, what's the real scope of this and impact? Let's do things that have significant
you tend to take it.
benefit to us. Laura?
I think it's initially because they are already moving in that direction, so it's a place to start. I think it does have an impact, like all of the pieces, like you were saying, in terms of a more comprehensive approach to everything. So this is just another aspect. Again, we've brought up C&D, which is a very important thing, but this can dovetail into C&D because there is a lot of C&D waste on movie sets as well. And I think the biggest piece is that many in the industry have already indicated that they would actually like to have a waste management plan, but they need it to be in their budget, and it will only perhaps get into their budget if it's part of the permit process and mandated. So it's kind of a low-hanging fruit, perhaps, in some ways, and it's an example because SAG-AFTRA is already supporting it. And like I said, multiple organizations are working towards that within the film
Well, I
industry.
would also say another question and the last question is jurisdiction. Who gives them a permit? I have no idea. And what are we working it into? I'm sure DEM does not permit filmmakers.
It's R&D. It's R&D department. We have
Yeah.
a person.
Commission.
You know, this may be a good idea to include under the general plan 2045. Maybe that could be a condition. Even if we move on in life, at least it's part of the general plan till 2045. So if there's any potential permit issues related to the movie industries and what have you, at least you guys could demand it now. Just a thought.
Okay, so I hear differ. Moving on to number 5. Included in the reference file is a much shorter letter to council that would transmit the very drafty ban on landfilling recyclables. And we need a motion to do it, send it. Can somebody give me a motion? I can second it, but I'm not supposed to give it.
No, I have.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Peter, did you catch who did?
Both John and Dot raise their hands.
Okay, great. More discussion? Again, this is opening the discussion with the council. We got lots to work through.
The only thing is, I don't think they should take incineration off the table or a last resort. We should just leave all the options open. That was the only thing. I think the rest is fine.
It's in the draft, I think. I don't know. I've done so many versions of that thing. With a comment, I believe that, a lot of the EMC don't like this. So yes, I certainly agree with you. And when we get to the nuts and bolts and actually commenting on drafts of the ordinance, I personally agree with you. But it's one to come. We won't be done with this probably in my term. Any other discussion? Ready for a vote?
Georgine, excuse me, Chair, very quickly, this was footnote 4.
I don't know.
Sorry. I'm just trying to pull it up right now so I can do another.
So it's in the reference folder. How did you send that, Peter?
It was uploaded after the agenda posted, so it's not on the footnotes, but it's online in the references folder.
Oh,
Oh, my goodness. Okay, sorry about that.
And you probably emailed it to everyone as well.
We'll discuss it later.
Basically, it's down to one page and saying this idea to ban landfilling of recyclable materials.
So this was already, you folks voted on it and Georgine just cleaned up the draft and it's just gave it to you folks to make sure that you're still okay with starting the conversation with council. This is just to start the conversation.
Let's send it.
Okay, take a vote to send it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Yeah. All opposed? Hearing no opposed, ship it. You can sign it for me, Peter, if you want to, or I can fax you a signature, scan a signature. Okay, that closes out unfinished business. New business, as I said, number 1, Rick Anthony, we will try to have a healthy Rick Anthony next year. And speaking of next year, item 2 is the approval of our EMC meeting schedule, which we hope to go back to the 4th Wednesday morning. Obviously, things come up, we can shift it, but was there anything weird you did, Peter, to pick those dates?
I don't have the calendar in front of me, but I believe the January meeting was set to avoid the opening of the legislature. I think the November 20th was going to be avoid the week of Thanksgiving. And then otherwise, more or less, whatever the 4th Wednesday is, that avoids a council meeting. So the council members can join as well if they choose.
Okay. We need an official motion to accept this. This is basically going back to our charter, bylaws, rules, whatever.
So moved.
Second,
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? And we'll see if our next marine biologist has issues with his teaching schedule. We'll deal with it if we need to deal with it. Okay, director's report, we've carried on far too long. And I guess I leave it to you, Ramsey, if there is anything hot and heavy that we need to hear about right now.
I think so far everything is moving according to our schedules. You all kind of addressed most of the most important topics. We covered solid waste, we covered wastewater, legislative matters. It's a good thing. It's the season now. If we need to be able to propose any legislation, somebody need to take the leadership on it, draft it so we could get the right people involved. One of the issue that I discussed, I was a keynote speaker last week for a conference, and I had the opportunity to talk to our co-partners in different counties, and the idea is trying to find certified wastewater operator is very difficult given the requirement that the HRS. So my recommendation was to them is maybe for the state of Hawaii, we need to revise the HRS that may not require the extensive tests that these individuals need to take. Maybe we could substitute it with educational requirement, credited units at certain universities. Maybe the University of Hawaii or of Hilo could administer these credited units once a year for 2 weeks to give our current operators crash course, and maybe they could just do a multiple choice with the professor or with the person that's given the training, rather than just make it a statewide exam where it makes a lot of people nervous in taking exams. So we don't have to take a test to be wastewater operators, because by virtue of the business they do, they spend the hours every day doing what they do. So, given that exam, I understand on the mainland is required. And the reason they give it, because you could travel to any different state and you could exchange your certification to whatever state you go to. But here in Hawaii, we are surrounded by water, and hopefully our certified operators continue staying and living here. They don't have to go to different state, but if they choose to go to different state, then maybe they could take the exam in that particular state they go into. But I think I kind of got some concurrences from other directors, but I think we ought to pursue that. That way will allow us to expand the recruitment and selection process for that particular field. So Laura, I know, maybe we could work with you in establishing something like that, and maybe we'll see if Tim Richards maybe could sponsor that legislation bill, because it could help the entire state. I know it's outside the box thinking. Initially I got rejection because people were telling me, current operators may object to it because, they have their own grouping and whatever. But the idea is we need to look for the best interests of the entire state. We should not be focusing on individuals. We need to figure
Are
out.
you going to run into any issues with EPA requirements?
That's what I was wondering.
As long as they have the hours and they have the education, it's a Hawai'i statute.
Yeah.
It's a countrywide. Anywhere you go in the state, they require you to take this state exam to be certified. But we could do that exception here because our state could have their own legislation. We don't have to worry about others.
It's just a question to make sure you don't bump into a standard requirement for who gets to certify what based on whether or not they've got that test done. My only caution is just, do it as an annual, keep up to date, make sure they're not slip sliding, do not lower standards of knowledge that it takes to be a good operator or any of the positions that you have.
This is not knowledge based. This is just there's people that could take exams well, and there's people
I understand that.
So an idea how you could overcome that process, but we understand we need the people. I have people that passes the exam, but they have no sense of operating facilities, and vice versa. I have people that cannot pass the exam and they can do anything on the facility. So it's a matter of just we need to make sure we get the right people and provide.
Try it out, and I guess bounce it off of professional societies on the mainland too, and see what kind of response you get. Anything else?
Well, does this have any tie back to the Clean Water Act? In other words, is there some federal oversight to this?
The Clean Water Act gives that authority to the state. So
Okay.
I think from a requirement. So, but I'm sure we could work with our corporation council and work with the state. I run it also by Department of Health, CINO. So we'll continue working with them. Their number one concern was, the reason, because it just like it's a profession. People are protected over the certification, and they don't want anybody just to break through that culture.
Right.
But I think given the condition we in, we have to create our own culture within our own state just to be able to provide that labor we need.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Yeah, on that though, Ramsey, I was thinking too, based on what you said, a lot of the times, the situation is such, but it's how do you monitor or how do you address those issues that are existing so that you don't have those issues and you're not lowering the requirements of applicants. So it's like maybe the existing employees, you need to address them, maybe monitor, evaluate so that those people you say that are in there that shouldn't be there is not there, kind of. And then you can open it up to, those who are qualified. And that's just a suggestion. Thank you.
Yeah, well, it's not about, you see, we're gonna grow within. Qualification comes with number of years and hours you spent in the waste treatment plant. So literally every time you take a certification test, grade 1, 2, 3, and 4, it's based on the number of hours you invest in each grade. So our current staff doing a great job of maintaining our facility. And we wanted to grow within because it's hard to find certified operators that already certified, willing to move in from the mainland to Hawaii because of the cost of living. And then it's hard to give incentives within the current staff to be able to take the certification exams because, like I said, some staff member are good at taking exams, some they fear the exam process and what have you. But to me, is if we want to be able to grow within, we need to think outside the box of how to achieve the same end goal, but in different ways to tackle that particular problem.
Oh, good luck. Dot, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I was wondering, do you want to include maybe a mentoring program with the ones that are well-trained, with well-trained operators to bring new people in?
Well, we always provide that. New staff come in, they be mentored by their current supervisor and the current certified operators, and they lead them through the program. And we currently provide training as well. We get people come in and provide the training. Is the challenge is statewide is trying to get people taking the exam and sign up for it and pass the exam. So, and I think, the big question, does that certificate on the wall, is it really, the way to obtain that certificate, I guess that's one question. Could we substitute it with credited unit education? And say, okay, now they went to obtain these credited units and they obtain a certification from that university. Let's put that on the wall and that should substitute.
I'm going to cut you off because I'm trying to get this meeting to go. But yeah, if people have ideas for Ramsey, discuss with him individually. One topic I think people keep being interested in is the solid waste operations study. You said it's ongoing. I talked to him. I don't know how many others have had a chance to, if they're getting follow-up, but my understanding is the due date for that report is next year in the fall.
Shalise, she's with us. Shalise, do you have the deliverable date?
Yes, I do. You are correct. The final analysis will be completed October 2024. We are in the phase right now where they are beginning their analysis and summarizing their findings of the current facility. So yes, to answer your question, it's October.
Okay. I think there were some comments that I got offline, and obviously we've got things cooking like the general plan and who knows what kind of legislation, where it'd be wonderful to get preliminary results. I don't want to push you into releasing or having to release anything that you haven't vetted. Just a personal bias as a former consultant, but if there is opportunity to share some findings earlier rather than later, preliminary findings, Ramsey, I guess I would, if you're comfortable with it, encourage that, because the subjects that they're looking into are pretty uniformly of interest to this group.
Okay, thank you. I'll be sure to note that and discuss that with the team as well.
Okay, thank you.
And I also I know we said it individually too in the interviews that we had with each of you, but if there's anything else that comes to mind, feel free to email your concerns to the consultant directly and just copy me. They are still receiving input from yourselves and others throughout the community.
Okay, great. Any other hot topics, Ramsey, that you want to share, question us?
I'm good since you already got the 12 o'clock. But if anybody else have a question, I'll be more
Well,
than.
we have two on the agenda. Dot wanted to know about cruise ships waste. Are we taking them?
We're getting a lot more cruise ships, and I was wondering if there's an impact on our landfills.
You know, most of these cruise ships, when they come in, they have these trash bins right at the pier. And I think they contract with waste management to haul it, but we have not seen any huge. Usually they either keep it and take it to Oahu or somewhere else, but we have not seen any of that waste because they're here for a day. They come early in the morning and they leave at 5 or, you know, before the sunset. So we have not seen any.
And who knows what they're doing out at sea, but that's not DEM's purview. Second question on here was from Dell.
Question.
I'm sorry, what?
Don't have any way of assessing that amount of waste that comes from them, or they're just not producing any?
Yeah, they don't, like I said, the cruise ship, they drop them off early in the morning, they walk around and they go back before 5 and they sail away. So I don't see any garbage containers. Sometimes I see that 3 cubic yard containers, but the actual ship, they don't bring their waste to here. They keep it within their, you know, cruise ship. They don't come and just decide, let me dump my waste here in the county and my wastewater and what have you. No, everything contained within the cruise ship.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, sorry about that, Dot. You're really small on my screen. I can barely see you when you want to say something. Dell had asked item 7.4.2 about improvement of the green waste operations. Since that's a pretty big ask, I'm wondering, Dell, if we can reschedule that question and maybe do it more broadly. Ask for a presentation from DEM on just what's going with Green West, what the plans are, what the situation may be.
Well,
Is that
basically,
okay?
it's just a monthly update, you know, on the status of the green waste.
Oh,
And
yeah, and we've already got a commitment
Yeah.
from DEM to break out green waste collection at the transfer stations and the organic facilities in the director's report.
okay, and just the compliance to the contract to that particular company.
I'm not sure what you mean there.
Well, you know, just making sure that every month we have an update so we know where we are and if we're in compliance of providing the tonnage that's supposed to be supplied to them. Because as I saw it, it wasn't the case. So I just want to make sure that we're on it every month to see that we are doing what we're supposed to be doing. That's generally that.
Okay, so we'll have that as a standard item on the director's report.
Thank you.
Yeah, we don't control the tonnage. Whatever people decide to grow green waste, that's what they collect. We don't go and chop trees, and it's the green waste comes to our transfer station based on what the people decide to throw.
Maybe,
So what we generate is what we generate.
but it's what you provide them that they can generate the mulch. So my question,
And what we generate, that's what get provided to them. That's all.
Yeah, it's the community that rather than dumping the green waste in the landfill, right,
We
they
take it to the
dump
gas.
it there. So DEM is not creating the volume. It comes from the community itself. DEM has no control over the amount that comes in.
No, I understand. that.
They can just advise us or the EMC on the amount that we did collect.
But I was talking more about the mulch. The
Yeah.
mulch coming back from Pu'anahulu, the West Hawaii Organic Facility. And to Kealikehi where it's accessible to the people there. So it was a mulch more so. Being able to come back to Hilo and then having Kealikehi supplied with the required mulch. Quantities of mulch. That was it.
Okay, well, I'll include that on the agenda next time if I can. Are there any of the other topics that are listed under the director's information report that people need to know now? Again, I recommend you to look at their web resources and the reports. They've got really good information online. Jumping to future items. Okay, we've got a couple deferred items that we will cover in January, including green waste issues. Anything else that you guys want to have us cover? We have no meeting in December. Have happy holidays. Don't even think about EMC. And just let me and Peter know, and we'll try to build it into the January agenda. The January meeting will be in Hilo. We will also be voting for chair and vice chair. And so if you're interested in either of those positions, be thinking, I don't know, send out literature, campaign for it, whatever. Otherwise,
Here, please no campaigning. There's sunshine law.
Who's campaign?
yes, that was a facetious comment. No campaigning. You can wave your sign right now if you want to. Only at a meeting. So we'll talk that through in January. And I forget the date. What's the date, Peter, for the January meeting?
24.
24th. Okay, in Hilo. I'll try to make it. Like I said, happy holidays, guys. Thank you very much for all the energy and time you put in on the commission. And hopefully I'll get to meet you, Gonzalo, next year.
Likewise.
So a motion to adjourn?
Done.
Me, so moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you all. Aloha. Mele kalikimaka.
All in favor?
Happy holiday.
Georgine, all in favor of adjourning?
All in favor.
All in favor?
All in favor of attending?
Oh, yeah, we have a vote. Jeez. All right. All in favor. Everybody just get up and leave. That's the vote, right? Aloha.
Peter, I forgot to put.
So voted? Yes.
Yes.
Unanimous.
I vote maybe.
What were you trying to
John wants to
Thank you.
stay.
Thank you, everyone.
They do